Hello and welcome back to another episode of your favourite educational podcast. To begin, we are reacquainting ourselves with a podcast segment you will know and love. Buzzword. This week's submission is Whimsy. Whimsy historically was categorised by unusual, playful and unpredictable behaviour, without serious reason or purpose behind it. Before the World Wide Web adopted it as its new favourite adjective, you may have heard of someone possessing childlike whimsy. Faithful listeners of the educational podcast will know that I am never wrong and this is no exception. And as such, this sentence, before the World Wide Web adopted it as its new favourite adjective, was entirely intentional. And if you notice what was wrong, I commend you for not being fooled by the conviction in my tone and cadence, or the attempted distraction I made by presenting you with data to substantiate my claim. I wish there were more of you. But alas, the internet is filled with such fools, as demonstrated by the formerly considered noun, whimsy, becoming an adjective. For example, whimsy things in fashion I love is grammatically incorrect. Whimsy is a noun, the adjectival derivative is whimsical. This should read, whimsical things in fashion I love. And in case you hadn't noticed because I'm aloof and mysterious, I am not whimsical. One may argue that it is inherently unwhimsical to be such a cynic over the grammatical correctness of whimsy. Nevertheless, for the sake of integrity, furthering knowledge of my own pedantry, we must continue. So, whilst I am the party pooper, you came here to learn, not to party. So let's begin.
Oh. That's it, I'm not going.
On social media, anyone can be a teacher. And where anyone can be a teacher and authority is measured by influence, the preservation of literacy becomes precarious when our teachers have a poor grasp of linguistics. So regardless of whether someone has the relevant qualifications to teach you how to dress whimsy, the confident use of incorrect grammar teaches us that this is grammatically correct. And if you are to consider the audience of this TikTok to be partially made up of people who do not speak English as their first language, learning English from this TikTok, deliberately or otherwise, you can understand why I believe this is a party worth pooping on. For anyone whose first language is not English, this should read, how to dress whimsically. If we consider whimsy to be behaviour which is unusual, playful and unpredictable, rather than having any serious reason or purpose behind it, we should all agree that to behave whimsically is to behave capriciously. If you disagree, you are wrong for two reasons. One, as I said, I am always right. And two, etymologically speaking, caprice stems from the word capriccio, 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 which translated into English is whim and historically relates to the word goat, referencing the unpredictable nature of leaping goats. So if we define one of the core characteristics of whimsy as caprice, which in turn is defined by unpredictability, we can also agree that it is somewhat of a paradox to be taught and to learn how to be whimsical. By definition, behaviour is predictable when it follows learned conventions. Therefore, teaching someone how to dress whimsy, or how to dress whimsically for that matter, completely defeats the concept of whimsy itself, which may seem unimportant because realistically, nothing on the internet is particularly important, and I'm no exception, but the improper use of grammar literacy in the English language becomes particularly significant when it's translated into an aesthetic. This translation and formation of a visual concept for an abstract word, through teaching people how to be whimsical, neutralises the quality of the word as part of the English language. Whimsy, now rather than being defined by playful spontaneity and childlike imagination, is turned into a set of repeatable visual cues, and paradoxically, what was once characterised by unpredictability becomes recognisable through repetition. And this is not the first time the internet has done this, and far from it, but just to provide evidence with a recently established example of this concept. By now, we are all sick of the word chic, and like the prophet I am, I would like to say I told you so, because the actual definition of chic has been completely diluted by its prolific use on the internet. Chic, traditionally characterised by elegance and sophistication, now encompasses everything that looks like this. There are plenty of conversations across the internet of the socio-political implications of chic and cool girl being represented by thin white women, and I'm not trying to dismiss it, I'm just trying to say it is a discussion being had elsewhere. The topic of discussion for this video is literacy. With that in mind, I would like to read you something the internet has to say. Real chicness is and style fits our day-to-day lives, and rather than just form of a perfected look, it's style with personal use and imperfections. It only could be worn by us, and the style is bespoke to us. Okay, it sounds lovely, kind of. The sentiment behind it sounds lovely, and I think the person who wrote this is probably a good person. Nevertheless, this is not what real chicness is. The word chic has become detached from its original definition through repeated and overextended use on the internet.
Here are some niche things that I just find so incredibly chic.
These are very niche things that, in my opinion, make you so cool. Also, these are things I find very chic.
Here are some things that I think are really chic as someone who loves fashion.
Here are things that I find so incredibly chic. All of these are very niche.
When one word is made to carry too many meanings, it loses its descriptive power and semantic precision, a process in linguistics known as semantic diffusion, essentially the Chinese whispers of language. As the word passes between groups, the definition is diluted. Where chic once meant stylish and elegant, it now also means individual, imperfect and authentic. Vocabulary reduces to the point where all of these words are encompassed by chic, leaving them redundant. The precision is lost, the vocabulary is lost, and even with all of this simplification, this is still not what chic means. For more chic discourse, watch this incredible video. Like and subscribe. And this is exactly what I see happening with Whimsy. Whimsy is made to do too much linguistic work. Where it once referenced caprice and playfulness, it is now used to describe anything that follows this current popular internet aesthetic. So now, as I have said, not only have we flattened the meaning, but we are also physically and visually representing an abstract quality, making the immaterial commodifiable, a process known as reification, which translated from Latin means making it a thing. The combination of semantic diffusion and reification is the ultimate business plan, and is probably the reason why it is so common on the internet. By the definition of whimsy becoming diluted, your business can now be described as whimsical, and reification allows you to make a whimsical good and sell it. So now, imagine you started your business when chic was cool. Chic, as well as being elegant and stylish, is now also individual, authentic and imperfect, and you market your product accordingly. In time, everyone gets bored with chic and wants to be whimsical. Whimsy, once defined by playfulness and caprice, through semantic diffusion also now means individual, authentic and imperfect. So you can see how it wouldn't take much effort to just call your once chic thing whimsical and continue selling the same people the same thing. So far this is pretty trivial, oh my gosh, people are still buying things in 2026, but the impact TikTok speak has on our linguistic capability is much more concerning. And if you've read 1984, you can understand why this is absolutely terrifying, because our subjugation comes with the inability to express ourselves. And right now, we cannot express ourselves. We don't know words anymore.
So I have this issue where like I can think and process all of these super complex theological ideas in my head, but when I speak, I sound like somebody's drunk uncle. Like I don't know what to do because I feel like I'm smart, but really like it comes out and I sound so dumb all of the time.
Apparently, going by this TikTok, we know stuff. We just don't know enough words to communicate it. If one word is used to encompass 20 words, people are going to stop using those 20 words and become 20 words less articulate. For example, all of these words mean good in one way or another. If you start using the word good in place of all of these words, then you do not need these words. If something is more good than something else, you say it's very good.
We had a very good conversation.
If it is even gooder than that, you say it's very, very good.
And a very, very good conversation with President Zelensky.
On the contrary, if something is not good, you say it's not good.
It looks like it could be something that will be not good.
If it's even less good than that, you say it's very not good. If it's even more not gooder than that, you say it's very, very not good. And so on and so forth, and eventually the government is controlling your thoughts.
All you have to do is look at the 800 people that were very, very not good for our nation.
And the same thing happens in the opposite direction. In case you're unfamiliar with the Tower of Babel, it is a story in the Bible, and the story goes, humanity once shared a single unified language, which they used to communicate to build a tower to get to God, which he didn't like, so he confounded their language and scattered them around. So even if they met, they wouldn't be able to understand each other to be able to build the tower to be able to get to God. And if you are a fundamentalist Christian, this is why we speak different languages. We are currently experiencing a Tower of Babelification, if you will. Volatile definitions are reinforced by digital echo chambers and algorithms. Everyone by now knows how the algorithm works in the simplest of terms. It shows you what to watch based on what you watch. And already you can see how this babalizes us. How do you ever learn anything new if you are only shown things based on what you already know? And the problem goes farther than just not learning anything new. The formation and reinforcement of groups across the internet by the algorithm and its echo chamber effect leads groups to develop their own idea of common sense. I often see across the internet the colloquialization of the term post-truth era, generally in a memeified way, but I think I can partly blame that on the microhabitat of the internet I exist in. But I think it is a curious discussion as to whether it is the current landscape we live in. The use of language such as speak your truth and that's my truth, language that, might I just say, I absolutely despise, because there's no such thing as your truth or my truth. There's the truth. But social media and this kind of use of language across TV, politics, education and literature has led people to believe that facts can be made malleable by emotion. If you look at this data set, it shows the frequency of words in published books. And whilst I know a lot of people don't like using Ngram because it's not the most accurate thing in the world, it isn't a complete corpus of every book ever published ever, so numbers are not exact, but it does show the pattern of language use across a very large set of data of published books. So just to demonstrate, I entered the in here, a very common word, relatively stable. And bearing in mind this is data exclusively from published books, so not only fairy porn, but also scientific texts, conference proceedings, technical reports and news journals. And this is what the data looks like for the frequency of the terms my truth and your truth. And this feels concerning to me. And I hesitate to comment on this because I know that this is considered quite politically charged language, often used by victims of sexual violence. And I'm in no way saying that this kind of language determines whether someone is a victim or not. Disclaimer. But isn't this just reinforcing the sentiment of this entire video? That words don't mean the same anymore. The truth was once objective and verifiable, but now it depends on who is reciting it. And again, not an attack on whether it is actually the truth or not when this language is being used, but the idea that the same word is being used to represent an objective fact, but also a perception of a situation, is the exact problem I'm talking about. Words don't mean the same thing anymore. And, possibly more precisely, we have a tendency to bend the definition of words to suit our emotional needs. As I frequently like to tell you, this is not a political podcast, but as you like to tell me in response, everything is political. This is an educational podcast. Today's episode is about language. And when I talk about language, sometimes politics comes up. But that is not the basis of the conversation I'm trying to have. With that in mind, I was listening to a podcast the other day. I'll link it below if you want to listen to it. It was on Pope Leo's first encyclical, which has to be translated into everything, including Latin. And because Pope Leo was using words that didn't exist, Vatican scholars and Latin translators are having to invent new words to be able to accurately translate his encyclical. And one article the podcast mentioned in Dan Spiegel that I had to translate into English because no sprechen Deutsch. But anyway, I was reading this article and it was saying that they had to invent all these neologisms in order to translate into Latin. And I was thinking, oh, of course, the word algorithm doesn't exist in the 6th century or whenever they used Latin, I don't know. But the word algorithm actually comes from the Latin translation of a Persian mathematician's name. Persian. Did I say Persian? I meant Persian. Persia. But anyway, this actually moves me on quite nicely to my next point of discussion. I would like to talk to you about the algorithmic amplification of politically divisive content. In 2017, researchers in psychology and politics studied how emotion shapes the diffusion of moralized content in social networks. Their paper essentially gives an empirical account of Babelization, showing that moral and emotional language spreads more powerfully within political groups than between opposing groups. The story of the Tower of Babel, as we read in the Bible, is the breakdown of communication between physically scattered groups of people. What we have now, as described by Brady, is the process by which divergence is continually produced, rewarded, and intensified by the algorithm within communities with opposing political ideologies. And due to the idea that this is happening within an enclosed group, the information does not even need to be universally convincing. It just needs to perform well inside the chamber it was intended for. But the algorithm sees nothing but patterns. It knows nothing. It only knows as much as you do. So if you decide something is true, so does the algorithm. So regardless of whether the information is fake news, my truth, or real news, or the truth, the algorithm doesn't tell you what's more true, it tells you what you find more engaging. Your truth or my truth is particularly complicated because it moves truth from the realm of objectivity into the realm of subjectivity, of personal experience. And this is the core of what I'm talking about. The same words still exist, but they no longer operate within a shared framework of meaning. One microhabitat says truth and means lived experience, another microhabitat says truth and means factual accuracy, and another microhabitat says truth and means whatever my group believes to be the right answer. One microhabitat says whimsy and means dressing in polka dots. Another microhabitat says whimsy and means capricious and playful. And another says whimsy and means whatever the person before me said whimsy meant, regardless of whether it is actually the definition of whimsy or not, because we're all on the same algorithm and this is reinforced, so you'll never leave. And you can never know what anyone else thinks whimsy is because you don't even know that other definitions exist. In the biblical Babel, people are divided because they no longer share a language. In our Babel, the digital garden of Babylon, we appear to share a language, but although what we say is the same, what we mean is different, and the meanings of that language are reinforced within our own group. The result is not linguistic difference in the obvious sense. We are all technically speaking English here, but there is semantic fragmentation. People still use the same words, but those words no longer travel cleanly between communities, because each group has learned to understand them through their own ecosystem, which is normally driven through emotion over fact, because this is what the algorithm likes, because this is what you like. So where semantic diffusion is the coagulation of meaning, assigning one word to mean multiple things, and therefore diluting its definition, it may appear as though this is an opposing idea to Babelization, where meaning is factioned and definitions are reinforced within factions. But the result is the same, it all leads to the same outcome. Semantic ambiguity, loss of meaning, loss of understanding, ideological isolation. And inadvertently, we are perpetuating this process by incorrectly representing whimsy. And that is everything I have time for today. I really hope you enjoyed that video. I will see you very soon with another very unwhimsical video about whimsy, I think. I'm sure the next video will be a little bit more lighthearted, but then again, I'm not exactly a very lighthearted person, so my heart aches when I'm not with you, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Oh. That's it, I'm not going.